One of the most important things we got to remember are our safety glasses. So make sure you have those on. And step one, well, we already have our barrel cut to the rough length. So we'll jump to step two. It says set the lathe RPM to 275. Now that's approximate, and depending on your lathe, what kind of lathe you're using, you might not have 275. So you find the closest RPM possible. So on this lathe, to get to 275, I need to be on Y, and it's a high range speed, so this lever is over on H for high. Okay. Then it tells us we need to set our feed rate, 0.003 on our feed rate. So that's on our gearbox down here. So I need to look at my chart here that has all the feeds and speeds on it, and this is going to be the cross feed. So the cross feed rate is going to have the little arrows and squiggly lines pointing front to back. That's indicating cross feed. So I'm going to find that decimal, 0.003, and again, depending on your lathe, just the closest thing to that. So I got 0.00295, so that's the closest thing to 0.003. So it wants to be on 1 CFT and number 2. So 1 is this one, C, F, T, and then this dial down here needs to be on number 2. Now that's a lot of levers and stuff, and sometimes you need to check to see if they're all actually engaged. So this time we can visually check our RPM also. Okay, so RPM is spinning, but nothing's moving here. So that means one of these levers is not engaged. Now I have my feed rod turning, and then I can do a test to see if my carriage is going to feed, or what's going to happen here when I engage my feed rate. So we want to feed it. This is our cross feed across the leg. It's going from front to back, just like we want it to. Okay. So now we can go ahead and place the stock into the chuck. Put that in there. Just going to leave about an inch or so of the metal sticking out. We want to use our left hand cutting tool. And the left cutting tool is designed to cut from left to right, or in this case, from the front of the machine to the back of the machine. When we put that in there, we need to get the height of that cutting tool up at the center. So I like to just visually guess where the center of that metal is, and then we need to do a test. So I'm going to turn the lathe on in a forward rotation. Going to move that cutting tool to the center and make a gouge. Now I'm going to feed it to the center of that. Now if it leaves any metal behind, then your cutting tool is either too low or too high. If it completely cleans up in the center there, the height of your cutting tool is good. And in this case, it looks like it's pretty close, but may just need a slight adjustment. So raise that up a tad and take another test cut. Okay, I think that's good on the height of the cutting tool. So now I'm actually going to take and face off the end of this metal. So I'm going to back out the cutting tool and turn the machine on. With my compound rest, I'm just going to carefully touch the end of the tool to the end of the metal. I'm going to make sure it's backed out. And then I just do about a half of a revolution there on the compound rest. And I'm going to gauge my feed and take that first cut. And this is going to clean up the rough cut from the bandsaw. Bandsaws don't cut all that square, so we need to square it up and make it perfect. Gets to the center, we want to disengage our feed rate, back out the cutting tool, shut the lathe off, and just check it to see if it's completely cleaned up. And in this case it is. So now I want to flip it around and do the exact same thing to the other end. We have about an inch sticking out. The height of the cutting tool is already set. So now we just need to touch it off and then go in the half revolution on the compound. Touch it, back it out, half of a turn, engage our feed. Back it out away from the metal. Back that out. Shut the lathe off. So at this point, we need to take the barrel out so that we can measure the length. So take the calipers, and because we have two faced off ends, we'll be able to get an accurate length on the barrel. And right now it says that it's 5.660. So I'm going to record that down on my step sheet. So we're 5.660. Figure out the difference. The length we want it to be is 5.5. So we have a difference of 160,000th of an inch that we need to remove from the length of this barrel. It's too long right now, so we need to shorten it up by 0.160. So we'll take this and go back into the lathe, sticking about an inch out. Move the cutting tool up close. So one way to accurately take the length off the end of the barrel, if you don't have a digital readout and you don't have any dials or anything on that, is to use our compound rest. So with the compound rest set at a 30-degree angle off of 90, so if this was 90, we turn this, our compound rest, to 30 degrees. If we do that, what I move it in on my dial is 50%. So I figured out that I need to remove 160 thousandths of an inch. So with this set at 30 degrees off of 90, that's actually, I need to double that. So 160 becomes 320 on this dial, because 160 times 2 should be 320. So I'm going to turn the lathe on, touch the tip of my cutting tool off to the end of the metal, zero out the dial, and we will go in, and we can't do that all at once, so we'll have to take a series of cuts. We're probably going to have to do this in 3 passes, because to do it in all one pass would be too much, trying to remove too much metal from the end of the barrel. We can't do that, so we'll have to take probably 3 passes. So let's turn the lathe on, touch the tip of the tool off to the end of the metal very carefully, just try to barely touch it. Touch the end of the metal, so I'm going to turn my dial so that it's on 0. We'll back this out. With a good heavy lathe like this, I think we can safely take off a complete revolution. That's 125 thousandths, but it's not, it's actually only taking half of that. Okay? And keep in mind, we need the correct RPM and the proper feed rate. If it's trying to feed too fast, we're going to have problems. So go ahead and engage that feed rate. Us up to a total of 250 at this point. make it so that we complete our 320 thousandths of removal. So I'm at 250. I go 50, puts us at 300. I go another 20, should be our final cut, making it to an exact length of 5.5 inches. Should be a little wider than the two previous cuts. This time we want to back the tool away so we don't scratch the metal on the exits. Back that away, shut it off, and now we want to see if our math was correct. Let's hope it was. Don't want to have to start over. So we'll take it out. We're looking for 5.5, and look at that. 5.5 on the dot. So, you can see with our compound rest at a 30-degree angle, we can do pretty accurate work. But it all depends on how you touch it off. If you gouge it in too far, then that's going to affect your final length. So you just need to carefully touch it off after you measure it and have figured out how much we have to remove. Yours will vary by piece to piece. Okay, so that takes us through steps 1 through 6.